Okay, so Khash Saghafi here, Liberty Home Mortgage. So today's topic, of course, is what choices do you have when the appraisal comes in short? There are 5. But before, of course, I tell you what those 5 choices are, here's what I want you to do first, is click the like button right below my video, click the subscribe button, and definitely share this information, especially if you're a real estate agent watching this video, share this on your page, okay? You have to pay attention to this for exactly what happens when you run into this on transactions. So right now, the real estate market, home prices we're returning to somewhat normalcy. They're not going up 20% anymore. They're still rising, but definitely not going up 20, 30% anymore. So a new problem that you might be facing out there if you're purchasing a home is that the home appraisal does not appraise for what the purchase price is. So when that appraisal comes in short, the question becomes, what do you do? What can you do, okay? First, let's start with this one here. Why is the appraised value so important on a mortgage transaction? Briefly, before I give you the 5 reasons, briefly, okay? Let's just pretend we're doing a VA loan. VA is no money down. That means we finance the home at 100% of the purchase price. Let's do some simple math, okay? Let's pretend the purchase price is $100,000. And if you're especially a real estate agent out there, write this down, okay? The purchase price is $100,000. The appraisal comes in at $100,000. The value of the home from a lender's perspective is the lesser of the purchase price or the appraised value. When the appraisal comes in for the purchase price, we're good. No problems, everything's totally fine. Buying it for $100,000, appraised at $100,000, my loan is for $100,000, okay? Now, let's pretend the house appraises at $110,000. The purchase price is $100,000. The appraised value is $110,000, $10,000 more. The question becomes, Khash, how much will you loan? I will loan $100,000. The value to a lender is the lesser of the purchase price or the appraised value. Purchase price is $100,000, appraised value is $110,000. We go by the lesser of the two. So at the end of the day, $100,000 is what I lend on. I don't give you up to $110,000, even if you were pre-approved for $120,000 or whatever it was. Now, this is the key, and this is going to go into your 5 choices. Let's pretend you're buying it for $100,000 and it appraises at $90,000. The question becomes, what does the lender do? Again, the value is the lesser of the purchase price or the appraised value. So to me, if you're buying it for $100,000 but it appraises at $90,000, I will loan $90,000. Again, this is a VA loan. I'm going 100% financing, so I'm financing the whole thing. I will loan $90,000. This is where we now go into the guts of the video for you. You've been waiting for this, okay? So if the house appraises for less, the question is, Khash, if you will only loan $90,000, what can we do? Like, what do you do? The purchase price is $100,000. The seller wants $100,000. There are 5 choices, and we're gonna be putting this stuff up on the screen, okay? Choice number 1, when the appraisal comes in short, this is choice 1. Have the real estate agents put together their comparable properties that they feel support a value of $100,000. So choice 1, real estate agents put together their comparables that they feel support the purchase price of $100,000. You take those comparables, send them to the lender. The lender will send them to the appraisal management company. The appraisal we're not talking VA specifically, but they'll send it to the management company. It'll go to the appraiser. The appraiser will look at those comparables and determine whether or not they want to unplug their comparables and they want to plug in the ones that are given. Now, this is a big deal, okay? You have to make sure that these comparables are in fact comparable, okay? They have to be matching up to the subject property in square footage, style. They have to have sold within the last, hopefully, 6 to 12 months. It has to support it, and they have to be comparable. So that's very important. So number 1 choice for everybody is to provide comparables, give them to the appraiser, and see if the appraiser will unplug theirs and plug in theirs. That's choice 1. If all of a sudden the appraiser says, hey, I'll get rid of my comparable and I'll use one of yours, and that just magically makes the number go back up to $100,000, and everybody's happy with that, you know what? You're good. You solved the problem. Choice 1 is to provide comparables to the appraiser you can call that a dispute or whatever you want to call it, and see if they change it. That's choice one. Choice two, the house is being purchased for $100,000. The appraised value is $90,000. There's a $10,000 shortage. Choice two, the seller comes down to the appraised value. So basically, the seller comes all the way down to $90,000. The house was being bought for $100,000. It appraised at $90,000. There's a $10,000 shortage. The seller comes down to $90,000. Basically, the seller eats $10,000. So the seller cuts $10,000, takes it off of the table. The seller gets less on that number there, and that is choice two. So let's go back to choice one. Choice one, provide comparables to the appraiser, see if the appraiser will substitute those out. Choice two, the seller comes down and basically eats the difference, okay? Let's go into choice three. Choice three is purchase price $100,000, appraised value $90,000. Choice three is the buyer covers the shortage. The buyer covers the shortage. Think about this. It's being purchased for $100,000. It appraised at $90,000. It's $10,000 short. The seller says, I'm not lowering it 1 ounce. The buyer steps in and says, you know what? I will cover that shortage of $10,000 with my own money. Khash is going to loan $90,000. The buyer comes with an additional $10,000. That's $100,000. The seller is made whole. Everybody's happy. The buyer covers that shortage. Now, right now it's October of 2022 when I'm doing this video. Earlier in 2022, we would have a lot of purchase offers where the buyer would offer with something called an appraisal gap, okay? The appraisal gap was the buyer saying, hey, I will cover a gap if one exists between the sales price and the appraised value. So that gap from $100,000 to $90,000, that $10,000 gap, that gap that exists, the buyer does what's called an appraisal gap and says, I'll cover that shortage. So that's choice number three. Choice three is the buyer covers the difference. Now, just so everybody out there watching knows, on VA loans, for example, buyers are allowed to cover gaps as much as they want. On FHA loans, buyers can cover gaps as much as they want. On USDA loans, buyers can cover gaps of as much as they want. And on conventional loans, buyers can cover gaps as much as they want. My whole point of that, everybody, is this. I've had people say, Khash, the VA doesn't allow a veteran to overpay for a house. It's completely false. VA doesn't do anything, okay? The buyer, if they choose to cover that shortage, that's totally up to them. What the VA does is they guarantee the loan to the lender giving it, and as long as it's all disclosed and everyone's aware of it, which they are, then the buyer can cover those shortages. So shortages can be covered by the buyer. That's choice three. Let's go back to choice one. Choice one is provide comparables. Choice two, seller comes down. Choice three, buyer covers the difference. Choice four, if the appraisal comes in short, is the buyer and seller some way, somehow meet in the middle or something like that. Right now in the example I'm giving you, the purchase price is $100,000. The appraised value is $90,000. There's a $10,000 shortage. You know what? The seller says, hey, I'll come down $7,000. The buyer comes up with $3,000. Some combination of that $10,000 shortage, some combination. I don't care if it's 50-50. I don't care if it's 70-30. I don't care if it's 10-90. I don't care if it's $1.9999, $9,999. Who cares? The buyer and seller, in some way, shape, or form, cover that shortage, okay? That ultimately is choice four. So choice four is there's a $10,000 shortage and they meet in the middle and cover some combination of that. Let's go all the way back to the top. Choice one, provide comparables. Choice two, seller comes down. Choice three, buyer covers the difference. Choice four, there's some sort of meeting of the minds and they meet in the middle or somewhere, some combination of that shortage. That's choice four. Those are the first four. Choice five, this is the fifth choice of this equation, okay? You didn't even think there were that many, but there are, okay? Choice five, all bets are off, everything is canceled, we're done, okay? The buyer loses their appraisal money, they're not getting that back. And by the way, when the buyer goes and finds another house, yes, they have to pay for another appraisal, okay? Appraisals are not like, I've had people say to me, Khash, but like, why should I pay for an appraisal on another house? It's a new appraisal, it's a new house, it's a new everything, okay? It sucks, I'll be completely honest with you, but at the end of the day, it's a whole new appraisal, okay? So you gotta pay for a new appraisal. I've had people miss out on I've had, I'm not just talking VA, I'm talking conventional loans where houses didn't appraise. You're talking, I've done this for 23 years, I've seen a lot of things. So ultimately, all bets are off. The seller says, the comparables, well, I'll go through a scenario for you, but ultimately all bets are off. That's your fifth choice, is that the buyer's not willing to cover, the seller's not willing to cover, they're not willing to meet in the middle, none of that stuff's happening, the comps aren't working, and the deal's off. Cancel everything, withdraw, throw it in the garbage, okay? Now, just so everybody is aware, and this is kind of more towards sellers, is 9 times out of 10, if you have an appraisal come in short, I got news for you. Even though people watching me are gonna say, you know, Khash, but I've had them come in, you know, short, and then I got a new appraisal and another appraiser hit value. That's entirely possible. Entirely possible, okay? By the way, put your comments in there, ask your questions. So as I'm going through this, make sure you're asking questions because I do respond to every single question. Oh, one other thing I forgot actually, I had somebody on a video, on one of my other videos I did actually on my YouTube page. They said, if I needed help fixing my credit, I would never listen to some guy wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt. So then I was like, okay, maybe if I go with my Metallica t-shirt, they'll listen to me, especially if it's on how to handle appraisal shortages. So I'm not sure, maybe the Guns N' Roses didn't give me the knowledge I needed on how to raise a credit score, but I'm thinking Metallica's giving me a good job and a good mind on how to handle appraisal shortages. Or it could be the 23 years I've done this job, working 7 days a week nonstop, answering my phone every 4 seconds, whether it's midnight, 2 o'clock, and the fact that I can rewrite the guideline books, and I know every damn guideline there is on this planet. So if you want to compare me to any other loan officer out there, whether it's your in-house or your brother or sister, or your mother, your father, or anybody else, I'll smoke them. Okay, so no, even though the t-shirt's cool though, right? Okay, so let's go back through these choices. I finished this thing up and wind this thing down, okay? Provide comparables. The appraisal comes in short, everyone's running around panicking. Provide comparables. Make sure that they're comparable. Don't pull up houses from 4 years ago. To my real estate agent friends, don't tell me how long you've sold houses in the neighborhood and you've never had this happen. I've had agents say to me, Khash, I've done this for 30 years and I've never had this happen. Well, then you couldn't have sold a house in 30 years, okay? This stuff happens, and it happens a lot. And I'll tell you what, in rising markets, as we've had in 2021, early 2022, even 2020, in rising markets, the fear was always, they're buying it for so high that they're not gonna hit the number here. Now, not in, you know, in stabilizing markets, as we're moving more towards right now, the question just becomes, can they still even get the value? You might start getting some shortages out there. Keep in mind your 5 choices, okay? 5 choices, and I wind this thing down and finish it up. 5 choices again: provide comparables, seller covers the difference, seller comes down, buyer comes up with the difference, they meet in the middle, that's choice 4. Choice 5, all bets are off. This is how you handle an appraisal that comes in short on a purchase transaction. I hope you took notes. I hope you like this video. I've got a lot of other videos on my page. I've got over 400 or 500 YouTube videos, all dealing with a lot of different things, dealing with housing, real estate, and a lot of other things. So hopefully you've liked it. You throw a comment in there if you want. I appreciate all the comments that come in. Subscribe to my page, watch this, and be sure to catch up with my next video and watch my other videos too out there. Thank you so much. We'll catch you later, and let's keep going. Rock on. Talk to you.